The first thing I'm gonna do is to check the microphone. Галерка слышит меня? Это прекрасно. Okay, fantastic. Yes, let us sit, please, I think. Especially our fantastic guests who've come a really long way. It's not like you would take a commuter train from, I don't know, from Butovo here. And the funny thing is that they came with the suitcases. Can you imagine that? So after a couple of hours flight coming here, which is a challenge. Okay, today is the 7th of December, is it correct? Okay, it's 8:35 or 8:40, and we're here in Dostoevsky State Library with a lecture which will be happening and is happening in the big course that the Higher School of Urbanism of the Higher School of Economics has been doing. It is the second season of it, like in the TV series, and this TV series is called The Open University. This Open University has different formats. The one which is public lectures and events that we have here, it is today. And the other two are the movie shows, thematic movie shows, and the discussions afterwards. And the third one is thematic breakfasts. And it is all done by the Higher School of Urbanism, Higher School of Economics for the Open University. We will have 3 TED-style presentations today from our great lectors. And let me please say who they are and to introduce them. It's the founder of the research company Mobicon, Johan Diepens. It's the Ring founder, Janine Hogendoorn. I hope very much that I'm pronouncing it now correctly. Okay. Okay, fantastic. And it is Rob van der Biel. Is it wrong now? Excellent. Okay, fantastic. It's Rob van der Biel. He's the founder of Go Dutch Cycling. And the aim that we are facing here today and tomorrow, because it is the 2-day event hosted not only by the High School of Urbanism, but of course mainly by the mission of the Kingdom of the Netherlands here, representatives of which are here in this room. And we will welcome them a bit later at the very end, when they say the aims of the mission for this public event. So it is the 2-day event. The second day will be tomorrow, and Ivo will talk about that a bit later at the very end. The last person whom I should introduce for now is me. My name is Alexander Seremetnikov. I'm one of the professors. I love this word, the English word professor actually means преподаватель. I'm one of the professors of the High School of Urbanism of the High School of Economics, which is just across the road. And me and my colleagues, other professors who are here, they're teaching students exactly the transportation policies, urban economics, and urban transportation economics. So I think that we're done with the opening. The camera did not see me at all. This is very good. The Secret Service will not run for me. Oh no. Okay, I will be talking from there then. And I haven't really asked, but I was told by Ivo that the first one to talk would be Mr. Diepens. Is it right? Okay. Okay. The first one would be Dr. Rob van der Biel, and I give the microphone to you.
Okay. Are you got it? Okay. Because I don't. Okay. Well, I'm very honored to be here in such an intellectual surrounding of books. My first visit to Moscow was in 1995, and I try to recall this week what my experience regarding cycling were in that period. I was involved in public transportation at that time, but I could remember anything regarding a bicycle, or I've seen something cycling or whatever. And like in many other cities at that time, it was hard to consider the start of cycling in cities like Berlin or in Bogota or New York and London, Paris. And now, 25 years later, something very exciting is happening. And all the big cities, like mega cities like Moscow, cycling is starting and flourishing. So I'm very happy that, well, maybe very very small scale contribution, but still I'm very happy that tonight, or maybe in the continuation of our visit, we can contribute to the start of cycling in Moscow. Now I start to know the technology a bit.
Does it work?
I don't know.
See, not.
You. Well, this is a commercial break. I'm a member of the Dutch Cycling Embassy, who is promoting Dutch export of cycling-related products and stuff to other countries. Actually, they asked me to join my two colleagues this night to come to Moscow. Okay, I manage. Myself, I'm an urban planner, and I love to be more than an urban planner. I think mobility is very important for livable cities, and I can hardly conceive practicing urban planning without taking into account urban mobility, and particularly cycling, because cycling, I'm convinced of that, is very important for the future mobility of cities. And even more important, I can't consider any urban planning activities regarding any thinkable subject without involvement of citizens and people who use the things and products we design or build. So more than ever, I'm convinced that when you do something in a city like promoting cycling and thinking about the future of cycling, you should take into account the way people are looking to it, how they feel this cycling could be enhanced, what their role is. In one word, you should think about the ways how to empower Moscow citizens in the future of cycling. Otherwise, it becomes something external to them, and that's not a good starting point to introduce cycling in your city. So cycling and empowerment really are my important subjects tonight. This is my favorite bicycle. I own several bicycles, but this is my folding bicycle, the Bronson. Great stuff. So no cycling city without citizens and cyclists, and no planning without participation. That's very important to note. I would also suggest to learn more about other mega cities like Singapore, Paris, Berlin, Bogota. This is biking Singapore. Singapore is in the very same stage of cycling development as Moscow megacity. Paris presents itself as Paris capital of cycling, which is not true. They are doing their utmost best, but it's nothing compared to Copenhagen, not to mention Amsterdam. That's not the point. They present themselves, and they are positive regarding cycling. Well, in your neighborhood, Berlin, doing a great job with cycling. You should visit Berlin, and like this, the former Tempelhof airport is now converted into a park, and a lot of cycling is happening over there. And well, that's not in your neighborhood. It's Bogota, the capital of Colombia, who is really a front runner in South America regarding cycling. For the ciclovia, every Sunday morning, huge parts of the cities are closed for other traffic, closed for cars, and are are the room for cycling. So to summarize my message for Moscow is, well, you should consider an exciting and inspirational long-term view, but you should combine it with pragmatic short-term actions. And to be a bit more in detail, I want to share you tonight in the next 5 minutes some principles and rules of thumb in this respect. So first, it's a major issue really. You should frame cycling positively. Feel good messages, no problems but challenges. You should not rebel against something. It's a thing of collaborating. So framing positive. You should also frame cycling comprehensively. It's something about mobility, of course, and it's an important thing to frame it as a serious means of transport. But you should also underline that it's a combination of your city and transport. It's about mobility in city, and it's also about economy, environment, and equity, about livable cities. See the most livable cities top 10 and consider which cities are with cycling. It's about passing the guy. You should wave through cars, not fight them. You pass them friendly. It's very difficult to avoid that you become angry on cars, but you should consider them as rocks. You don't quarrel with a rock. You don't fight with a rock. It's just a rock. So cars are not a subject to deal with. It's about cycling. You should seduce and inspire. Cycling makes you happy. And then, very important, you should work on a pragmatic agenda on the short term. Very simple things, simple parking solutions. Sometimes you need some paint, and sometimes you can limit yourself to detect and to conserve zones of low speed. It's not very spectacular, but these are the small things to start with. And this is a difficult one. Tomorrow we have a workshop and we will go into more detail. But participation, again, that's very important. And that presupposes that the municipality is accountable for all their citizens. That's their official duty, by the way. But the cycle community, people who want to involve in cycling, who wants to promote cycling, should also being accountable to all citizens, also the citizens who are not yet that far, and not people who, your neighbor for instance, who don't recognize that cycling could be important. So being accountable is very, very important. The municipality, I don't know if people are here who work for a municipality, but the municipality should engage the cycle community. Not send messages or directives, but they should really engage with them and have conversations and ask them to join them and to share their ideas with them. But for the cycle community, it's also very important that they challenge the municipality on a positive way. And the third thing, you should be comprehensive. It's cycling is transport, but on the long run you should take into account many more other things that are important to promote cycling. Cycling is about livable cities and to boost your economy, to open up your city for all kinds of citizens who are now, for instance, never visit the central city, etc. There are many topics still to address. This is just a very short summary of a huge challenge. There are many inspiring examples, I think, what participation and action of participants could mean. I love this image this is in Brussels, by the way, in Belgium, people who are claiming public realm by painting bicycle logos on the asphalt. Actually, we did it in our own country, in the Netherlands, 40 years ago, in a similar way. to fight back and to reclaim public realm for cycling. Again, Moscow is already a very successful mega city, but it could even be a better city, including cycling, if it mirrors itself to similar successful cities. And I think Singapore is a really good example for Moscow. As a matter of fact, I can recall from 20 years ago that the urban planners of that time, we had cooperated with the planning office, the designers of the city in that time. They really already had the idea of learning from Singapore. But regarding cycling, Singapore is even more important than it had already been. You should compare. This is the plan of Singapore of 2013. And it's a very, very simple plan. The dots represent community areas who could work as focus for future cycling. So they very much emphasize the importance of neighborhoods and the possibilities of those neighborhoods to boost cycling, to start cycling. So it's not a matter of designing huge networks. If you compare the network plan of Moscow to Singapore, then the differences are very striking. So maybe you should focus on neighborhoods and not as city-spanning networks. I like this map, the useless map, very important. It's an art of close analysis. Before thinking of new infrastructure, you should assess your already existing infrastructure. Very clever. This is just a section of the map. I'm sure you know that it's much bigger. Another thing, the new circle line, the line 14, is really an opportunity to start cycling in the next phase and to boost it really and to use the new neighborhoods like the area here depicted with the red dot. That's the area of the served by the Botanic Garden Station, and a development of a Japanese consortium. And by introducing cycling in this new property, you could really spread cycling all over your territory of the megacity. Well, you should really make close analysis of your structure. This is an example of a competition from years ago done for Moscow, and take into account the structure of existing patterns of connections in your city, and check it where this relates to parks, rivers, etc. So this is it's one of the many ways to learn your cycling potential. Well, this is a very unclear image perhaps, but this is a map of Greater Moscow, and it maps all social media postings. I think this is a very unexpected way to encounter or to consider who's potentially a cyclist by mapping social media postings. Urban planning, I think potential cycling should be in the regular urban planning of the city. So, well, this is a nice picture of the new future of Moscow, but I think this one is even better because this one shows the next generation. He's still on one wheel, but within 30 years, he and many others hopefully are on two wheels. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this great talk, and it is great that you've noted the line 14 because it is the only metro line where cycles are allowed by the rules. Funny enough, you've caught the major thing here.
Yeah. Thanks.
We will continue with the second speaker and postpone the questions and the discussion part to the very end, and I'm sure you understand why. Who's going to be, because we mixed it up a bit, who's going to be the second one?
Yeah.
Janine, no?
Okay.
It will be Mr. Johan Diepens, the head of research company Mobicon, and it is your word now. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Moscow, Sweden. Rob already mentioned a lot of developments around the world. I will try to tell not what we did, but I will try to tell you a little bit what we're gonna do in the Netherlands right now, or what we are thinking about, because I think that can help you also here to make next steps. It's only 15 minutes, so it will go fast. Huh? Put your seatbelts on. Huh? It's good to be back. I was here last summer in 2015. I was for the first time here in Moscow, so I didn't know what to expect, and I was surprised by a lot of things here. Also, of course, life on the streets. That's interesting to see, because there's happening a lot here. And when I walked around with a lot of people, I saw a few things. I saw a lot of car traffic, to be honest. And I saw also your system of thinking a little bit about cars. I was waiting for 120 seconds as a pedestrian, and I got 19 seconds green, and then it was red again. That gives a little bit impression about how the system works in mobility. But also what I was surprised about was, of course, the first cycle tracks in the city center of Moscow. And what I saw was scooters. And first I didn't understand, but afterwards I understand, of course, that it's a good combination with your metro system. In fact, very smart combination. And I think that are a little bit steps by steps that you make a sort of intermobility. You make one step with the metro, you make one step with the scooter. What I also saw was a lot of what I call unsafety. I was a little shocked that people had to cross as pedestrian a railroad without anything. You just have to look left and right. And that's what I'm going to talk about today a little bit, about safety. Because what you see in a lot of streets, and that's logical, in a lot of cities you see that in fact what it is a domination of the car. It's the holy grail, everybody goes away from it, gets a lot of space. And I think what we see more and more in all cities around the world, that it gets busier and busier in our cities, and that we think about our space. And that's what I'm going to talk about also. Because if you talk, and that's what I would like to press in you, is we talk about mobility. We don't talk about cyclists, we don't talk about cars, because everybody in the end is mobilist. One moment you walk, other moment you take your bike, another moment you take your car, you take your metro. And in fact, you have to be smart to think about that moment. What is the smartest thing, or perhaps the most nicest thing to use? But in fact, mobility is a basic need. Because if you don't have it anymore, it's very difficult to participate in society. And it can be elderly people, it can also be kids who are not able to go to school by themselves, but have to go by bus or other things. But it's also important that is that signing, that's simple for me, how long have to wait as pedestrian, is a sign about how we make our decisions and how we make our world. It's a combination of your environment, it's about your government, but also by yourself. And what you see in a lot of times is that a lot of people have no idea that there are other solutions for them. And when you have a lot of car drivers in a lot of cities, they've never been on a bike. There's one problem for the cyclists, because they have no understanding what the cyclist will do, what can happen with that cyclist. But if you've never been on a bike, you have no idea that it's perfect to go to work on. And there's a study in London, there are more bikes over the Thames right now in rush hour than cars. And what it was is that everybody was more happy on that bike, because their brain went little, they could think about other things, they had a better job, they got a better sex life even, everything was good when you go on the bike. But what you see here is a picture from the Netherlands. You see a woman, a mother, taking her little baby into the traffic. And what I know from mothers is that it should be safe then, because otherwise they don't do it. So what we have at the moment in the Netherlands, it's quite normal to do this. And when I show this in the US, they think they got nuts in the Netherlands, because it's unsafe, you never do that. There are even rules that your kids have to be 16, they can't be alone at home. When we talk about mobility, for me it's important that you can participate in society, the right to come home for everybody. I read that in Russia, 26,000 people never come home anymore every year because they died in traffic. Go around the whole world is 1.25 million people die in traffic each year. It's quite a number. Huh? It means for me independency for people. You can make your choices. You have to wait for other people, and it should be sustainable. And we have to know that 75% of our world population will be living in big cities in the future. So we all come together. Huh? And what you see, if you look at mobility, you look at the mobility market, in fact, there is one thing that you can say, the menu card. You have to make choices. And a lot of cities you can walk, you take the car, or you take public transport. And something happening around the world is what is interesting. Because there are more things. This is a picture from Utrecht, one of our center cities in the Netherlands. And it is too busy. We get queues with bikes there. You can say it's insane, but this is in the morning, this is Utrecht at the moment, and there are more places in the Netherlands. So besides that, is what you see is that there's a lot of innovations. The electricity is changing our world, in fact. A lot of new modes are coming up, and it's just waiting which mode will survive, in fact. And what we see in the Netherlands right now is that a normal bike is nearly old-fashioned. You got e-bikes, all kinds of things. It's getting more crazy and crazy. We got a few problems with that, because normally the speed of a bike is quite simple. It goes 15, and if you go very fast, you go 20. But now with an electric engine in it, you go 25 or even 45. In Germany, the first bike which goes 120 is already there. But that means that you're more vulnerable in traffic also, and more difficulties. What you see here is a little car, in fact electric car, which can't fall down. It is a system in it whenever it comes back again on its wheels. This is very popular in the UK at the moment. So they are mixing up with pedestrians. Everybody's confused because they go faster than pedestrians, 50 kilometers an hour. So the world is changing more and more and more with all the innovations that we see. We get self-driving cars, more IT in it, car sharing things. Even we got little cars who can fly at the moment, already there. A little helicopter and a car. And also to see here that our logistic systems are changing. Not with the big car in our city center, but smaller cars. But all those modes have one thing, that is, they can be very dangerous for you. This is a result of research about safety and cars and pedestrians. And what you see here is that when a car it has a speed of 30 and he hits you, you have a chance of 15% that you will die. Is it 50 that will hit you? You have a chance of 85% that you will die. So safety is not about mass of a vehicle that's hitting you, but also the speed. So in fact, it's a very strange situation that we accept 50 in our cities. Because we also know when cars drive 30, they are faster at the destination than they drive 50, because we have to do a lot of other kind of measurements for them. What we did in the Netherlands was a study about it's too busy and there are too much changes around us, so we have to rethink our system, in fact. And we started with safety. We said safety is the most important part. What you hear is a figure of kinetic energy, what will hit you when you are hit by it, and you can see that there is some kind of motors in it. The mass of the system makes it, the kinetic energy has the influence on it. And you can imagine that there's more power on you when you're hit by a bus than you're hit by an inline skater. Depending on how heavy that inline skater is. But what we did here, in fact, that we said there are some kind of families, we call them here. You can make lines of it, say, oh, this is some kind of family. And we made a new system for the Netherlands right now, there's a lot of discussion about. This is this one. We said, in fact, when you think about your city, you have to think in 6 families. The pedestrian, the bicycle lights, the light motorized vehicles, the car, the trucks and the trams. And you can see that they are all the mass that they have and how wide they are. And in fact you can see that there's not only one bike in that family, but there are a lot of things fixing in that family. And what we see right now, that all the innovation in the future, we can put them very easily in this graph. We can say, how wide are you, how big are you, how fast are you? And then we can put them in somewhere. And also with our insurance companies, we've already talked about this one. It can be interesting that we put a line right here. Then we say if you go faster than 30 kilometers an hour, you need a license, you need the insurance, you need a helmet, by example. And if you go slower, there's no discussion about that. So for us, this is a system that we can think about the future for all the new innovations. And in fact, it helps us a little bit with the menu, because we think that people have to make more choices, smarter choices for them, for every mode they make. And that's interesting. But there's one problem with that menu, because if you run a restaurant, you can make your cart bigger on the menu, but your kitchen stays the same. And that means that you have a smart cook in it or something. But in fact, our urban space stays the same, and we got more families in that system. So we have to rethink very good about how we design our urban space. Because are we able to share the roads with those families? When you see this picture, you think twice about it. Because this lady feels very uncomfortable. And you have to know, by example, in London at the moment, 9 of the 10 people who die on the bike is a lady. And we found out that in fact ladies follow more the rules than the men. And that's when your system is wrong, it's too dangerous, then you get that kind of outcome. But can we make the right choice? That's in fact the question. Because it's all about space. And you can see here the pictures you know perhaps, but public transport, bikes, etc. So if more people take the car, you get more and more space, you have to destroy your building, etc., etc., etc. And so you have to be smart in that. So where we are thinking about is can we go further with that, with the family idea, and can we combine space and traffic together with it? And we made a very difficult method for it, because we are consultants, so we make it very difficult that only we can do it. But in fact, it's something to set your mind on, because what we think is that the identity of an area, identity of a street, activities of a street, they should tell you how fast you can go in that area. Because now it's more the traffic would dictate than the activities what dictate. So we think that we should look at the area. For example, here's a lot of pedestrians, a lot happening here. So this is a 30k zone. And not a 50, but we think in zones. And we also think in networks. We combine those networks, and at the end we can make a design of a local situation. Because identity, this is Utrecht, and you can see that in Utrecht, you can be a guest. It's pleasant. So it's no surprise that the city of Utrecht wants a 10-kilometer zone in this area. You're not allowed to go fast, and in fact only pedestrians are allowed, and perhaps some cyclists. So you get zones of your areas with all kinds of the speeds. And then you get your networks. This is Japan, people go faster or walking. You get your networks. You get your discussions, because in fact in your car network you say still for now we want to go 50 here, nothing to do with 30 or with 10. But what we think is that this domain, the activities, they should tell how fast things are going, because then you can use all the activities in a proper way. And we think that it is normal that in certain areas like this everybody goes 30. You have to design it in that way. You can change things. This is a city in Drachten in the Netherlands, and we changed it into this area. It's now a pleasant area where you can meet each other, and where the speed is 50 kilometers an hour. It's the place where you see your neighbors to go into the city. One thing is always important here to have to know that these water fountains, they go higher if there's more car traffic, to make more noise than the cars always. And this is if your networks are meeting each other up. This is in a place where the cycle network and the car network were meeting each other, and we are unable to solve the problem on the ground floor together. And what you can see, that is a race roundabout for cyclists, and the car stays under it. And everybody's happy right now. It's a unique point in the Netherlands. Now back to that system, I think when you think of those families and 10, 20, 30, you have to think about when do you mix people and when do you separate those families. It goes very fast, but this is 10. You're only designing for pedestrians, and all the other families are a guest in that area. And it's quite simple how to build up. 20, you may merge pedestrians and bikes, and the rest is a guest. When it's 30, always a separation for pedestrians, but it's 50 always separation for bikes and pedestrians. I think the whole system of mixing separation, that's very important, and not to do it just there, just there, just there, but have a system in your thoughts about that. I think my time is over or something.
I need to put a coin inside the euro. €2. You're out of members.
Yeah. I am. I'm nearly there. Right? No problem. Only 50 slides to go.
40 minutes, will be short.
This one is broken.
If you want to have coffee or something, it's...
Let's try it with a keyboard.
Yeah.
Do you need this slide?
Yes.
You put the arrows. Left one.
I put the arrows, yeah. As one example of this method, what we did in Amsterdam. You ever been in Amsterdam, somebody of you?
Yeah.
Do you know this place? Not? Or you only see the coffee shops? Huh? Yeah. This is in the city center of Amsterdam. You can see there's a little bit of mess with cars and trams and people stopping, etc., people walking. And in fact, if you look at it right now, you can see there's a public transport. The cars are allowed to go 50, a small stroke for the bike, and parking and cycling. And we had a discussion not only with the traffic engineers, but also what we call the area managers and the policy makers. And it was the first time that they were talking about things. So we started with activities. We said this is a 30K area. And then, in fact, it changed at the end of the discussion in this design for the Rozengracht in Amsterdam. You can see this is the special area for public transport, parking and parking we put here for bikes and cars, and then you get 3.5 for bikes and cars share the road, and you get more space for pedestrians. It's just an example that it works quite well to have these decisions about what is the activity, and that decides the rule about this area. So when you talk about mobility, you can talk about cars, etc., but in fact you are talking about mobilists, and those mobilists want to do some activities. They want to meet people, they want to go to the libraries, they want to go to work, and they use transit mode for that and infrastructure. So this whole circle is very important to think about. I had a few slides about Moscow, but more in a way about how you can think about the method and think about the future. There was old Moscow a long time ago. This is right now. And you talk all the constant about Moscow, the bigger picture, but I think that what we know is that 75% of the moves people are making is quite in the short distance. A lot of people who live here will never come here in the city center. So you can think about it, how you design it. So in fact, when you look at the picture, you can say it's a puzzle of things fixing together. And a lot of destinations and movements are within that puzzle. So you also should look first, perhaps, about smaller pictures. Now, that's interesting. Tomorrow we will talk about the Tova area, outskirts of Moscow. We will do a workshop about that, what you can do there for the daily life people, how you design your network and your infrastructure. Because it's a green area, but people also like to walk outside. You can see this one. But it's also part of the puzzle about what you're going to do with Moscow. Because I think that if you do what you always did, you get what you always got. And there will be some changes, I think. So Moscow in 2025, only 9 years from now, will be different. We know that. Faster than we think. And for now, for me, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. It was Mr. Johan Diepens, research company Mobicon. And you also got a fantastic local thing in the beginning of your speech, is that we legally have the embedded rule that the pedestrians should go underway. That's why you should always build an underpassage crossing, which is of course an obsolete idea. And I'm introducing you once again, Ms. Janine Hogendoorn, the founder of the Ring Ring.
Yes, thank you to be here. I'm also very proud to be in Moscow and to see you smiling and looking full interest of all the stories of Rob and Johan. For me also very interesting. I want to share you my personal story, and it's about the value of health and mobility from 5 different perspectives and from 5 different stakeholders. Is this working actually? No.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's my personal story. I say that because it's started from civic engagement while I was working in another job. But it started because of the participation and the activities that we, the people, can build our cities because we know what we actually want. Oh, this was wrong. So what do you see? We all look at the same stars, but we all see so many different things. And that's how we learn when we ask each other, what do you see? How do you see your stars? Then we start being curious about what is your desire and what do you want? Want even in the Netherlands, we are the cycle experts, and you have been to Amsterdam, the people that raise their fingers, and it's a cycle paradise. But if I ask the people in the Netherlands, they say, yeah, cycling, it's normal. We do it all our lives. But it's not normal at all. We were also a city like this in the early days. So when I tried to wake up my people in the Netherlands, I said, look at your city through the eyes of a foreigner. And that really helps. And then they start seeing the paradise of cycling. So I fell in love with Moscow 20 years ago. I worked in Russia at the Cosmopolitan, at the independent media, and I really love Moscow and I love the Russian people. No, but also I'm based on that, well, it was 20 years ago, but still I recognize a lot. Then I also experienced so many great possibilities for your city, because I experienced the most beautiful and the best working metro system. It's the best public transport I've ever been in. I experienced huge pavements. We don't have that in Amsterdam. And I see a lot of car space to share with other modes, because if you look at Tverskaya, the 4 lanes back and forth, it's like simple for me, like just give one to the cyclist. But I really had an amazing time, and I lived at the metro aeroport. And then I was here in spring and summer, and I started to rollerblade to Vodne Stadion. So every day I rollerbladed on your beautiful pavements to my work. It was fantastic. Oh. So we mentioned it already a little bit. We are all mobilists. So how do you experience actually what you want and what you need? It is very important to have a certain freedom of choice. And freedom of choice, when there's only one choice, there's no freedom. And 2, it's an illusion of choice. But when there are 3 kinds of choice, there will be also automatically space for 4 and 5 choices. So if you take, for example, you have the car, you have the public transport, and you can walk. But because your sideway pavements are quite big, you can also bicycle or step on it. Scooter, you call it, the step. So everyone symbolizes kind of an animal. And if the manager is saying, okay, I want everyone to take the same exam, please climb that tree, then the fish and the penguin and the elephant, they have a problem. And we should build our city, all our desires can be needed. So where do I come from? I come from also like a foreigner in the mobility world, because I was a supervisor on the financial markets. I did a lot of behavioral change. So how can we put those banks and market players do the behavior that the law tells them to do? And I have a great passion for data. So we receive 25 million data each month to look for market manipulation and so on and so on. And then I moved to a different place in Amsterdam, which took me 30 minutes on a bicycle. And then slowly my Ring company started to exist in 2011. So if you change nothing, nothing will change. This message is said before by Johan. So the light bulb moment occurred to me while riding my bicycle and being a mother of 4 young children. Einstein. It's supposed to be Einstein's quote. I thought of that when I was riding my bicycle. But who of you is experiencing that as well? When you ride your bicycle, that you have kind of a, yeah? Yeah, great.
Five, at least five.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So I was on my way to home to work, and it took me 30 minutes, which in the beginning I thought was a very long time, even for the Dutch people. And I also want to emphasize that it's not against cars, so we should stay away from that discussion. It's about something else, and that's the 5 perspectives. So I started my company, which is called Ring Ring. The ring. You have how many rings in Moscow? 4 or 5? But the ring is also symbolized for relationship. And when you have relationships, something good comes out. Children maybe, something new. So I started my social and purpose enterprise. And social means doing good. It's from the bottom-up activity and to get participation. And it's a purpose enterprise because we do solve problems. And remember, all these 5 perspectives are very important, where a cyclist is the winner. So it's about public space. It's about health. It's about climate. And it's about economy and mobility. So we do talk a lot about mobility, but it's only one of the 5 major themes that people care about or think something about that. 2 months ago, I won the best international solution in Moscow. I took this red bicycle with me, and I cycled also on your roads, which was a little bit hindsight, it may be a little bit dangerous, but I thought, well, I can do it in Amsterdam, so I can do it in Moscow, and I survived. I put the bicycle here, and they said, no, take it off. I said, no, for the picture on the internet. And what do cyclists actually solve? Well, it's sitting still is the new smoking. The health is very important, and if you filter social media, you will recognize more and more messages about the cost of our, scarcity in health actually. And when I see you actually, you have a different size than other people in the world. You are more humans. If you look, for example, the United States, but if you look to the Netherlands now, we are starting to grow. Well, it's about public space, and it's about, of course, air quality. Cars produce 60% of the air quality is from the cars. And the cyclist actually solves these problems at one choice. So the huge economic impact on our health scarcity is really huge. It's 67 million in 2013, which also has an economic impact. And that is, everyone dies one day, but how do we spend our last 10 years of our lives? Is that in sickness or in health? Yesterday someone told me about the WHO Health Organization, who has the heatwalkingcycling.org, and you can put parameters in there and calculate the opportunity cost of spending money to promote active mobility. It's billions it saves. So the economy is. Now that was the solving and the purpose part of the company. And how do I do that then? It's the value creation. And with the smartphone, you all have a smartphone? Is it quite common also? So it automatically counts or recognizes how you travel. So the cycle kilometers are kind of points, or let's say cryptocurrency. And who benefits from cycling? That's the healthcare companies. It's employers. It's local government. It's we. So all the individuals together. It's we together. And it's entrepreneurs. When they give cycling benefits back, they win their own economy back. Healthcare, it's about prevention. Employers benefit from productivity and creativity. And you're more in time at work. Local government, we said it before. They will also benefit from making places attractive to people. We, of course, and small entrepreneurs. I will tell you a little bit more later. So it's a platform and an app I've built, and it counts your cycle kilometers automatically. It's only in Dutch, so you can download it and try it in Russia if you know a little bit the fields how to enter your email and password. But then it works also in Moscow. And the platform gives those 5 perspectives the possibility to give you something back. So for example, an entrepreneur, if you exchange 100 cycle kilometers, I get a 10% discount at certain shops in Amsterdam. And for the participation, Rob is all about, is that we do in a specific area in Amsterdam. So all the cycle kilometers from and towards that area, the municipality puts money in a fund for civic engagement. Now here it's in Dutch, so for you it looks like, what is this? But these are the colors you just saw in the circle. So these are the 5 stakeholders that benefit, and these are the 5 perspectives. So I think you can all, did you remember them? It's about public space, health, economy, climate and mobility. And it's cities, healthcare, employers, entrepreneurs and we. So if you put all those 5 things together, then you can make a difference. And what is really nice, because we all do that, and you have a lot of universities, I saw on the map Katja provided for me, when all the students start cycling with apps like this, you can develop so much open data from what is the context, where do we want to cycle, what is our natural way of cycling together in our city. So the city planners, you help the city planners like building that network. You have knowledge about routes, times and distances. Now here are all the teams, which I continue a little bit because I already talk a lot about this. So when you start young, of course in the Netherlands, when you have children, I'm also...
Don't be afraid.
Just the window closing.
When the baby is born, the first thing, it's a move is crawling. The second is walking in the Netherlands, and the third is cycling. So she cycles 8 kilometers and no problem for her. But the activity modes is very important to stay healthy the rest of our lives. It's Johan said it, 70% will live in cities in the future, so we need the space. And are you aware of the fact that how our space is designed unconsciously makes us, gives us a mobility preference? I never really knew that until a psychologist did a lot of research about this. And then you also start looking at your cities or surroundings in a different way. Because it's true, there are hardly any bicycles here, so people will not think about the bicycle because you don't see them. In Amsterdam there are so many bicycles, you think, okay, it's normal, so I will jump on a bicycle. It's also a lot of research is been done in the Netherlands that actually pedestrians and cyclists spend more money at local shops. They come back more often, but they also spend money there. And when you spend money in a local shop, it will remain 3 times in the same geographical area, which is very important for local economies to flourish. In New York, where a cycle path is being laid over, then the shops had a turnover increase of 49%. And they were, of course, said, no, we want to have the car and we do not want a cycle path. But in the end, they were very happy. Now, climate is not a real issue, sometimes I understand in Russia, or is that true or not?
It's difficult. People have different opinions.
Yeah, no, that's good to have different opinions.
Not very good. Don't know very much, unfortunately.
But the climate resilience of a city, if it's about climate, but it's all about heat, it's about where the rainfall goes, and the greener the city is, the vitamin green, the effect of green in the city is very good for our health, but it's also good for our climate adaptation of our cities. And well, cyclists and pedestrians take less space. This is all pictures in Amsterdam, by the way. It looks like some outside the country. And of course the mobility, but even in the Netherlands, so that's why I'm also, it's like, yeah, the Netherlands, there are so many cyclists, so what is there to gain? 50% of the people jump in a car each day. 1/3 of our young children are putting in a car and brought to school by their parents, so they can ride that 7 kilometers to their work. So it's actually a very sad situation from my point of view, and that's why I also started this company. Like, come on, we can choose. It's our choice to decide how the world will look like for our children. So we have to take responsibility, and there's a lot to gain. So the choices are there. It's always the chicken and egg. You will, of course, always also experience that we need cycle infrastructure. But that's not true if you look at the zones Johan just told you. What do you put on there against what speed? And do we give our people freedom of choice, of a mobility choice? It's nice to take a look at cities that way. Now, yeah, I was always told that I have to put a little bit of repetition in the story because people will not memorize, but I think you do. So technology to value healthy behavior from those 5 different perspectives. And always this to keep in mind to make it a little bit easier. So all problems exist because people act without thinking or think without acting. So no one, everyone is doing what they can. And there are no mistakes, there's only feedback. So we can solve everything. Just open your ears and listen to the feedback. And of course we need vision and passion from leaders that help you and or the group as communities. But we need people to step forward and to show how we can change the world. So you can follow me at different social media if you want, and I share my stories. I'm already very proud. I was here in September and I met Vladimir, who did the cycle tour. I just went away, otherwise I would have joining you, of course. I think it's really amazing what you have achieved in the last, well, I think 3 years only. So I also see a beautiful, beautiful Moscow in the future. So go for it. Thank you.
So we are thanking now Ms. Janine Hogendoorn, the founder of the Ring Ring. I don't think that this is the only thing I've got from your presentation. We were actually thinking on the format on how we would do the discussion and question session. Either the lecturers ask the question to the audience, or more traditionally, vice versa. And because with the first thing you get the exam. And so we will stick, I think, to the traditional version. And I should be seeing hands raised with questions, at least 25 hands, please, so that we can make an auction. So I should see them. Will you handle this in English, or should I help?
Можно, но разрешите, мои этикет не разрешает мне говорить по-английски. Ну хорошо, с той стороны.
Okay, we'll translate it then.
Вы, пожалуйста, господин, переведите.
Да.
Я прошу. Очень рад, что выказываю признательность нашим гостям. Вы очень интересно говорили. Но я хочу обратить внимание на одну интересную, которую вы упустили. Вы не ушли национальных особенностей. Вот я книжку читал хорошую, «Записки о Москве». Известно, я вам расскажу одну хорошую историю. Путешественники, которые прибывали в нашу страну, в Москве, с давних времен отмечали удивительную особенность. Русские, некоторые бояре, да и просто знатные люди носят шубы даже летом. Почему, как вы думаете, это они делали?
Thank you very much for that you came here. And I was just reading a fantastic book right now. And there is one story about the Grand Duchy of Muscovy that I have noted here, and I think that you have a bit missed. It's that they're wearing, that had in the Grand Duchy of Muscovy, 400 years ago, they had been wearing the fur coats even in the summer. Why do you think? So that's what you think.
Подождите.
Very poetic.
Я
it's not the end.
Подождите. Вы, наверное, поняли, почему они это делают.
I think you understand why they've been
Дело в
doing
том,
it.
что в Москве, в России, машина это не только средство передвижения, но еще и социальный статус. У нас предпочтут люди стоять лучше 2 часа в пробке, чтобы проехать 2 километра, чем пройдут 5 минут пешком. Вот я хотел сказать. Прошу это иметь в виду.
Maybe that's because the car here is not only the mean of transport, but the status thing. And many would spend an hour or so there in the car and will not use the bike or go by foot. So please account it for too. Please answer with your microphones on the table or over this one.
Well, thank you very much for your question. In the context, particularly for your question. Well, if you think about new ways of mobility, and for example, if you think about a new way of cycling or enhanced cycling in your city, you should always take into account time. And well, it's very tempting to think that you can solve problems within 1 year or in 2 years or whatever. But many problems, many challenges, many new behavior, new ways of mobility, new future of cycling, all that stuff take years. And when your question comes into another light, when you consider time in the sense of generations, and I mean generations of people. So you need probably 40 or maybe 60 years, 2 generations, to get a new kind of city or another kind of city. Now about your remark about a car mobility. One of the major issues, problem with car mobility is that it also evolves in matters of generations. The first generation car drivers in America, that was in the 20s, 30s of the previous century, were all first generation car drivers. That means that meant their parents didn't drive a car nor owned a car. So, and these first generation car drivers drove terrifically bad. It was a horror. And even the second generation of car drivers in America, that's in the 50s of the post-war period in America, caused big troubles, huge amounts of debt, etc., etc. And then the government of the United States in the 60s and early 70s decided to make a real paradigm shift in traffic. And they enforced new rules for car driving. They set speed limits on all highways in the country, in main roads in the country, in the neighborhoods, etc. And they enforced this by heavy police work. So now the third and current 4th generation of car owners and drivers in the United States completely has another culture of driving. So the problem here in Moscow and similar cities in the world is that the car drivers are almost all are first generation car drivers. So when you want to change the situation, you should take into account that it takes at least 20 to 30 years to get a new generation of car drivers and a new, hopefully, new way of car driving. And then the status of cars, the symbolic role of cars in society, but also the cars as means of transportation will change.
Thank you for the brilliant answer. I think that no, really, it's a fantastic thesis, isn't it? We're all first generation. We have the question here. Yeah, he was the first one, I think.
Okay, if some people like to stay on traffic jam, let's they do it, but without me.
Yeah.
I come here on bicycle and I have some troubles with the weather. It's cold, it's dangerous, it's something like blizzard. And what we can do with this problem? I don't know how to solve it. Okay. Просто I'm sorry. Я ехал сюда на велосипеде, это было очень страшно, опасно и скользко ехать сюда зимой.
Slippery and dangerous.
About 8 kilometers from the Bogorovskaya.
About 8 kilometers from the north.
It's very, very cold, but the first problem is the snow. It's скользко and it's dangerous. What we can do with this problem?
Thank you for the question. It is very nice and neat. And I remember you saying that we shouldn't be thinking about the problems but the challenges, isn't it? So who would answer this?
Thank you.
With the cold, we can't do that much. Perhaps we can get more car drivers and keep it heated up a little bit. Huh? But the slippery issue and also the safety issue is, of course, for partly it is choices that we make. That the infrastructure for bikes sometimes is not covered with snow plowing, by example. That are choices that you make in the way you go on with your city. And snow plowing and slippery, where you're talking about, that is of course an issue where we are working on, to be honest. In February there will be a conference in Montreal about, there's the fourth one, the winter cycling conference. But everybody's talking about these kind of issues because it is quite different how different countries approach winter cycling. If you go to Finland, by example, they do a certain way of maintenance that they keep snow on the cycle track, but they make it a little bit hard and also a little bit loose, so it's quite comfortable to bike on it. Trust me, it's quite comfortable there. But you see in the Netherlands is that we are starting up with our first experiments of heated cycle tracks. So that means with warmth from the earth we use for that to heat up the surface.
Not electric.
No, not electric. It's heat from the ground, from 2 kilometers downstairs, and we heat it up, and in that way there's no ice, no slippery on that surface. It's the first experiments. First it was 10 meters, and I believe now 500 meters. But it works. It seems to work also. So what I think is that we should get innovations in this kind of areas. I work a lot in Canada at the moment, and my biggest frustration for me is snow plowing because it's all oriented for the car, and it costs a lot, and we can't change our urban space with all those discussions. So I'm trying to get in Canada right now, but I told you already, the innovation center for snow plowing, and that should mean that we have to think smarter about the way we can do that. It's the first building right now in Canada where we use heat to heat the building, also to heat up the pavement for pedestrians. The rest heat of that. It's quite simple, in fact. But if nobody thinks about it, we will never do it. Huh? So I think that I agree with you that it is dangerous and slippery. But I think we can work on it. But there's also priority in maintenance and priority in lighting and in fact in everything. Yeah? Yeah? Thank you.
So that also, how does your bicycle look like? Do you have the thin? Yeah, so yeah. It's better to have a little bit broader, bigger wheels.
Ваши колеса шире на велосипеде?
No, but I have spikes.
Yes, fine. If you have winter wheels right now, there are that big winter bikes coming up. But quite expensive, to be honest.
I haven't even heard, but for today, about spikes for bicycles. Fantastic.
But the first problem is the snow on face.
What about spikes on your face? No. Will not do. Will not do. Thank you very much for the reply. And the question from you, sir.
Yes. Well, I guess we'll see me tomorrow as well. But thank you for coming here. It's very exciting to have three Dutch specialists here. Three Dutch specialists speaking about cycling in Moscow. And I wanted to say something to you about the generation problem. I've been in Russia for 20 years, and I'm a driver. I'm a cyclist as well, and I can say that the changes that you describe, which normally in Europe take place in a generation, they go faster here. Really.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so there is. I'm looking at it quite optimistically because I've seen road traffic really change. It was absolutely wild 20 years ago, like completely suicide. But then suddenly I noticed that drivers started thanking each other with blinking lights. You know, thank you for letting me in, because we are all standing in the traffic jam. It's really democratic because, well, of course, some people are accepted from that, but most people are in the traffic jam, so there is nothing you can do about it. And I also noticed that people started putting safety belts on. Even 10 years ago, when you put your safety belt on in a taxi driver would say, "You stop, don't you trust me?" I'm a driver with 20 years of experience. That's what they would say. And the police, they still no, some of them still do it. But now it has become normal. It is really accepted. And these things, Russia has an amazing capacity, people here to change and to absorb change. And now, I started cycling to work all year round about 5 years ago, and dogs were barking at me in Gorky Park, and now Gorky Park has become bicycle heaven. So I think there is Russia has fallen in love with cycling, and you know when Russians love something, they love it deeply. So I think there is optimism here.
All right, I have an ambassador. We have.
Great. Thank you for your really optimistic thesis, because it is very, very common here to say that everything is bad and we're all gonna die, which is of course true, you know. But let's make it fun at least.
Yeah.
We have the fourth question now, please.
Thank you for your coming. My name is Maya, and now I'm working for the Department of Transportation in Moscow. I'm working on a system of monitoring of effects on ecomobility of bicycling and walking. So I've got a question, I suppose, to Ms. Janine. You told about the data, the technologies, and so on. I've got a question. How does the data exchange or data collection organized in Amsterdam, does it work? Does the Department of Transportation work with the NGOs data or so on and so forth? How does it work? Thank you.
Now what we collect is so-called GIS data, location points actually. And last year we started in the Netherlands, it's called the Fietstelweek, it's the bicycle count week. And they use the same algorithm actually that I use, so it's the same set of parties. The city governments are working now for the first time with cycle data, even in the Netherlands, because we also didn't know anything about who is the cyclist, where do they go, and so on. So it's also for the governments that they just get the collection and they start using it. But there's data, you have to make information, and then you have to communicate about it. So that whole process, that's what they're doing right now, and with a lot of parties together. So it's also in the children's shoes. So you can, when you start here, you can show us next year how to do it better. Does that answer your question a little bit? Is your question answered?
Yes.
Great. Every question is answered. That's a success, and I'm not kidding here. Do you have questions to the audience, maybe? Oh, they haven't inspired you. Okay, they haven't inspired you yet. So we'll leave it to the second day. It will be you, sir. Thank you.
My name is Johan. I come from Germany and I lived there for some time. And I'd like to give one remark about the historicity of bicycles. So there's a kind of strange feeling that the bicycle is something new to Moscow. It is not. Even in 1883, we had a bicycle club in Tsarskoye Selo. So the bicycle has been here for quite some time. And people are using bikes on the Dacia and something else. And now the bike comes back to the center of the city. So that's the quite new thing that we have here. We always have to keep that in mind, because it's not an import in that sense. It has been here for about 10 generations.
Oh, great. Why do you think it vanished?
Well, the same reason that it vanished in the Netherlands, the same reason it vanished in Germany, but then in the Netherlands and in Germany we started to get the bike back, because we felt that it's useful, that it's nice, that it's comfortable. And so in Germany it was about in the 60s, 70s where people really started to aggressively plan bicycle ways, bicycle paths. It's the same thing in the Netherlands. And now this thing, the city structure changes, that is happening a lot later in Russia. So we had a backlash in that. And cars are pretty popular in Germany right now, and we really like to sell them to Russia and everything. And but I would be really happy to see more and more bicycles as I see now. I was asking, like, do we have bicycle stands in front of the library? And yeah, we do have them. And there's not even space to park more bicycles. They're both filled up. That's really good. Thank you.
Thank you for the fantastic historic remark. I personally love to find the roots of and the reasons in historic evidence. And as far as we see with the time, and with the time that is now, I would like to introduce you Mr. Ivo Stoel. He's the representative of the Dutch embassy, of the mission of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, of course. And I give you the microphone, please.
Thank you. Well, that sounds very chic the way you say it.
I will tell you a fantastic joke about the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Let's do that after during the drinks. So, well, first of all, I would very much like to thank the speakers for they actually, as Alexander already said, they came pretty much straight out of the plane, had a very quick bite, and ran here to give their presentation. So I want to have a nice applause for the speakers for being here tonight. Thank you very much. And then, of course, I also very much want to thank our partners in the organization of this event, which were the Higher School of Economics and the Department of Transport of the City of Moscow. So thank you very much as well. And of course, Alexander, thank you so much for hosting and sharing this evening. I think we all enjoyed that very much. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
So on a very short notice to close, I'm walking here, and as some of the speakers already said, they gave a short presentation today, and actually tomorrow they're going to give a workshop where we're trying to get together people who are involved in cycling, who are involved in the community, and who are involved in the decision making around the urban planning of Moscow to have a dialogue about very concrete cases in Moscow. So it will be a very different event from today, where we mostly had a sort of discussion, and tomorrow we will work on concrete cases in a workshop format. It will be tomorrow in the afternoon in Digital October, and you're also very much invited to come there if you're interested in that. Bauke, who also asked the question, will be the moderator tomorrow. So if you are interested, we have a couple of spaces open still. If you're interested, come to me or come to Anna at the end of our event, which is right now actually, to let us know that you would like to participate, and then we can put you on the list. So that's it for my part. Thanks again for coming, and well, we hope to see you either tomorrow or sometime in the future at some other event around mobility. Thanks.
Thank you. The joke about the Kingdom of the Netherlands would be private. Would you be so kind, please, to switch into the slide, the wrap-up slide? Once again, we had 3 fantastic talks. The talks that we here locally had been rarely thinking of, and thanks to your experiences, of course, we now been more digging into this topic. Because here in this geographical area, which would be Moscow, Ryazan, or St. Petersburg, the last thing you would think in the geographical region and in the culture that has 4 dry months and not having no mud is cycling. That's sort of a joke, which is true, that we're thinking here, that we have like 10 or 8 months which are dirty or muddy. And it's not only about snow and cold. But the thing is that if you remember our history, and you fantastically pointed that out, that there are lots and lots of rationale and reasons in history. If you remember our Emperor Peter the Great, who came to Holland, to Netherlands, to study shipmaking, but we can now come there too, almost 350 years. We can come there too and study the new ship. It's not the new ship making, but it's going to be the new notions of cycling here. And thanks to Anna, we have this wrap-up slide of what had been covered today. And the major thing that, for instance, myself, I have the privilege today, at least, to say myself here and to say what I've noted. What I've noted is that there is no blatant agenda setting. It is very, very elegant what you're talking about. Thinking about the pedestrian and thinking about the car. And not stealing something from the car and giving it back to the pedestrian. But trying to live efficiently. And that's what efficiency is. And to bring in elegance into this efficiency. And for me, for instance, everything you've been talking to, it was about this elegant approach of changing the mobility patterns. Thank you so much. Oh, you have a present, please.
I have some small things for the people that use a cycle. It's a sort of a thing you can put your smartphone on your cycle wheel in a very cool way, so you can come and pick it up. And also something for the key holder, if you want or if you like. If you are a real cyclist, you may come. Yeah, of course, it's padarky.
Were you on the editorial part? I was one of the only, I think, male people who was reading. Yeah, sheet forward. Oh, yeah? Yeah, forward.
Yeah, of course. Do you know how to prove? Show you. A higher.